Learning about Gemara. Today's Gemara starts from Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph by the two dots. The Mishnah highlighted as some essential dinim that even though they're all Mahat Torah, we don't find any clear passages in the Torah referring to them. Some of them have no basis. Some of them have like a mountain on a hair. And some of them are clearly in the Torah. So we're going through and exploring every single subject that the Mishnah brought up to see what the Mishnah, which aspect of that halachas are not so clear and that they're like mountains on hairs. So the last one we did was Me'ila stealing, and now we're up to the next one here. It's about 8 lines, but the two dots about 12 lines on top of the page. Mikra mu'at v'halachas merubas. The Mishnah says, first the Mishnah said the mountains are based on hairs, like the laws of Shabbos and Chagigah and stealing. Then the Mishnah says there are few psukim, but there are numerous halachas. So the Gemara says, brings a brisa. Tana, we learned the goyim, the laws of leprosy, the Allah is the laws of tumah that are inside a tent, inside with a cover on it, and the tumah spreads. Anything else in that same room also becomes tamei. Is mikra mu'ut, only few psukim, but halachas merubas, numerous halachas. So the Gemara goes through it. First of all, the goyim. There's a question. The goyim mikra mu'ut. Are you going to tell me that leprosy only have a few psukim? The goyim mikra mu'ut, have 2 parshas on it. Tazriim mitzayra. What do you mean only a few psukim on it? Oh, the papa hachikam. In fact, this is how you're supposed to read the brisa. The goyim is mikra merubah. The goyim has numerous psukim, but halachas mu'atas, but there aren't too many halachas. Basically, everything is canvas, but in the Torah. Allah, on the other hand, when it comes to the laws of tumah, inside has a shared common roof, is the other way around. Mikra mu'ud, there are very few psukim, but halachas merubas, there are numerous halachas. The Om Masechta, all this Mishnayis says the Gemara Meinaf Kimena. What do we need to know this? You need to know this is if you're not sure about certain halachas in the goyim, where do you look for it? Just go to the Torah. Almost everything there is covered in the Torah. But if you're not sure about certain halachas of tumah in the oil, then you have to do is go look in the Mishnah, because you won't find too many halachas in the Torah. The next thing is dinin. We have laws to do with courts. Michtav ksivan. Basically, they're written all over the Torah, Mishpatim and other places. What do you mean they're not written? We need it for the following case. And it goes as follows. Ela the Rebbe, the case of Rebbe, the Tanya, we learned. Rebbe says, if 2 people are having a fight, and then inadvertently they strike out, one of them wants to strike the other person, by mistake strikes a pregnant woman, and first we said if he kills the babies in the womb, he has to pay a monetary payment. And if he strikes the woman herself, it says nefesh tachas nefesh. So does that mean literally that he gets killed for murder or not? He intended to murder, but the other person, not the woman. So Rebbe says that even though it says in the pasuk nefesh tachas nefesh, she dies. In the pasuk uses the word a soul for a soul, a life for a life. You would think maybe it means literally to kill that person. So Rebbe concludes no. All it is a monetary compensation, and the reason is because you did not intend to murder her. You intended to murder him, didn't intend to murder her. That's Rebbe's opinion. And the Chacham argue, they say the fact that you intended to cause murder, and therefore you hit the other person, you're still liable. You say it's money, or maybe it means a life for life. Nemra, it says in the Torah that if there was an accident of an asata, use the expression of an asata, you should give a life for a life. And that's in matter. Remember, it says further, what happens if you shoot a pregnant woman and you struck her and you killed the baby inside the womb? There it says that you pay money. And use the word, also in the sin of Vinasa, you should give. Malahala mama, when it comes to the case of the baby in the womb, it definitely is money. Afkan mama, and use the same expression in the sin, so therefore it means money as well. So this is a law that's not clear in the Torah at all. In fact, you need we learned it out from a Torah. You need the Mishnah to teach you what that is. So that's what it means, that mikra mu'at, but halachas merubas. Says then you mentioned also avodas. In the Mishnah says avodas, service on the base of Hamikdash. Which particular service? Michtek Sivan is a whole Chumash Vayikra discussing the service in the Beis Hamikdash. So what do you mean that it's only very few psukim and many halachas? Again, we are going to highlight one particular halacha, and that is, remember we learned about 4 activities that are vital for a carbon. One of them is shechting. One of them is kabbalah sadam, receiving the blood, halacha sadam, transporting the blood, and zrika sadam, spraying the blood on the mizbech. And the kabbalah the elah, from receiving the blood onwards, only a kohen can do it. Only if he's wearing his vestments, and if you have pigul, if you have the wrong thoughts in mind, it gets ruined. All the laws apply. So this particular law, how do you know that? The transporting of the blood. The transporting of the blood is the weakest of these, because you don't always have to transport the blood. If you shechted the animal right alongside the mizbeach and you receive the blood, there's no reason anymore to transport the blood. You're already standing there. So transporting the blood is the one malacha that sometimes you can go without it. So we're talking about transporting the blood, and that is, it says in Pasuk, time you learn, it says in Pasuk, you should shech the animal, and it says v'hikrivu, you should, that the Bnei Aaron should be bringing the animal the blood, and then spray it on the mizbech. Now, what does v'hikrivu mean? If you translate it literally, it means to transport the blood. But we decided v'hikrivu doesn't necessarily mean to transport the blood. We said that v'hikrivu actually means kabbalah sadam. First, you have to receive the blood. That's where it's out. Because before you can transport it, you have to first receive it. There's no other pasuk that talks about receiving it. Because the first thing, because the pasuk says shecht it and then bring it. So there's a step before. And the step after shechita is receive the blood. So here it means to receive it. But after rachmana b'lashon halacha, and then the Torah uses also an expression of transporting. The Chsiv says, the hikriv, and you should, it says you should bring the kohen, everything, you should bring it and roast it on the mizbech. There, the hikriv definitely means to transport. So the same word v'hikriv means to receive in one pasuk, and another pasuk means to transport. So the hikriv, the kohen should bring everything too by the limbs. It says, it itemizes all the limbs, and it says the hikriv mizbech, and bring it to the mizbech. So so we learn from here the fact that the word v'hikriv is one place translated as to receive the blood, and the other place is translated as to ferry the blood across. We learn that's referring to bringing the limbs to the ramp. It doesn't mean roasting it on the back, because it says in the pasuk, you should roast it. So it means you bring it to the ramp. Remember, in the ramp, the kohen to bring it up to the top. So remember, to tell you that halacha, this is how you learn out, that halacha has the same din as Kabbalah, that you need a kohen to be wearing all of his vestments, and if you have the wrong thoughts in mind, pigul, it ruins it. If you're an oinen, you shouldn't take part in that. You shouldn't be sitting, you should be standing, because it's considered a true avodah. So the halacha we learn out, just that we learn out, it's not clear in the Torah. That's what we mean when we say it's not 100% clear in the Torah. In addition, you don't even need to do malacha sometimes if you shech alongside the mizbeach. Nevertheless, it has a din of an avodah. That's what it means in the Mishnah. Next one was taharais. Okay, so then we say also taharais. It says in our Mishnah, dinyan avodas taharais tmeis and arais. What did the Mishnah mean when it said taharais? Which particular din of taharais is not clear in the Torah? The Gemara Michtek Sivin isn't written in the Torah as well. How do we know the size of a mikveh? What's the quantity, the minimum quantity of water in a mikveh? How do we know? Like Siva. It's not written anywhere how large a mikveh should be. The Tanya we learned, this is how we learn. It says in the pasuk, it says in the pasuk you should wash ba mayim. Ba. Now the word ba means and the water, the famous water that was set aside, not water that was just drawn from a pail. Water that was set aside. You don't need mayim chaim. You don't need spring water. That's a separate pasuk altogether. Where the Torah insists that has to be spring water like a zov. So everyone else can be just not spring water. That has to be gathered water, at least, but not mayim shuvi, not water that you put in a bucket and you transport it over. And that's called bamayim, special water. Not every water, but special water. Water that wasn't mayim shuvi. The main mikveh is kol psari, and it says in the pasuk that you should. So we say main mikveh, and the pasuk says as kol psari, it's the entire body. So what we know about this gathered water is that it has to be able to cover your entire body. Mine's go over and water that can cover entire body. The kamein, how much water is that? Amma al amma, the width of an amma, because a person is an amma thick together with his clothes. If he removes his clothes, he has a little bit of space so he can fit in. Berim sholish ammas, the height of 3 ammas. Why the height of 3 ammas? Either two ways of learning shot. Either because the average person in those days was only 3 ammas tall. It was only 3 ammas tall, which isn't very tall at all. Or the average person was actually 4 ammas tall, which is pretty much like today. It was 4 ammas tall. It's like 5.5 feet. But what do you call it? The head is not counted, because why isn't the head counted? 2 possible reasons in that as itself. Either because the head you can bend down and bring it down to the level of your shoulder, or because when you go in the water inside the mikveh, you displace some of the water and it rises. And it rises, if 3 ammas, it rises in ammas, it will cover your head. Bottom line is we need enough water we need a cavity that can fill 3 ammas height and 1 amma wide. And how much is that? We calculated that is the cheshbon of 40 saw. That's how we get a mikveh today. It's not written in the Torah. So again, it's vague, but we learned this. It's like a mountain on a hill. Then we continue to Tameya. The next thing is Tameya. The Torah clearly delineates the laws of Tumah. We know that when it comes to a shed, it's one of the 8 different rodents that are metame, generate tumah. If you touch it or lift it, is the size of an adosha lentil. If it's an oil, you need a kazayas. Is sharing a common roof. But if you're touching it, you need even the size of a lentil. How do you know that? Like Sivir, nowhere is there written in the Torah. And the Tanya, we learn that again, very cryptic. It says in the pasuk, the following Atame by a shedet, Kol Hanagea Bohem. If you touch Bohem sounds like you have to touch the entire sheretz. Yochel B'kulam, we would have thought you have to touch the entire shedet. Tamalayma, it says in another pasuk, it says that anything that falls into a pot, mayhem from them, means even a part of them. Yochel b'miksasin, I would have thought there's no minimum share, even the slightest amount. It's sufficient to generate tumah. Tamalein bohem, you have to touch all of it. So how can it be bohem and mayhem at the same time? Okay, it says, Chagigah Daf, you have to touch a little one, which is almost like a big one. What's that? How do they get the size of a lentil? That this is something which is a small amount, it's equal to a large amount. One of the shrots is called a chaymet. Rashi says it's a kind of a sheretz, and he used some French word, I'm not sure what it is. And it's a sheretz that grows together with its shell. It's like a snail. And it starts out, it's in its infant stage, it starts out the size of a lentil. So it's possible for a complete sheretz to be the size of a lentil. So therefore we say mayhem, bohem, the size of a lentil. Now basically Yehuda says no, because none of us the tail of a lizard. The tail of a lizard, you cut it off like a worm, you cut it in half, both halves still travel. You cut the tail of a lizard off, the tail will still survive. So that's the minimum size of a complete sheretz. That's one of the 8 sheratzim. It's a complete size of a sheretz. So that's the mayhem and bohem. Again, it's not clear in the Torah, we just learn it out. Saying about it further, arroyes, when it comes to arroyes, all those that it's forbidden to have any relations, marital relations with Michter Ksiv, the Torah itemizes all the arroyes, and other places. So what do you mean it's not really clear? We're talking about a specific case. That when it comes to your daughter from a woman that you raped. So it's your daughter, but it's not your wife. So this, when it comes to your wife, it says in the Torah, the erva of Isha, of your wife, ubita, and her daughter, which means not only if it's your daughter, even if it's her daughter from another person. Nevertheless, if she's your wife, it says a woman and a daughter you cannot have relations with at the same time. So that's right. It says a woman and a daughter you cannot have relations. Then it says in the pasuk your granddaughter and your grandson. It says your granddaughter and your grandson. Now, why does it say your granddaughter and your grandson? Why didn't it say that the daughter of your daughter, by itemizing, by highlighting your granddaughter, your grandson, we say there that pasuk is talking about a woman that you raped. When a woman that you raped there, we say that it only if it's your granddaughter, your grandson, it is forbidden. So in other words, only her daughter is forbidden to you, but not her granddaughter, if it's not through your daughter. In other words, the woman you raped, if she has a daughter, you don't want to have relations with. But if the woman you raped had a daughter and her daughter had another daughter, It's the woman that you raped. A granddaughter, that isn't forbidden for you. Okay, so we have nowhere then when it comes. So where does it say that the daughter of the woman that you raped is forbidden? All we know is the granddaughter and the grandson. How do you know that your daughter now you're make if the granddaughter is also surely you would think that the daughter is also. The thing is we have a rule you don't punish based on a kavachimer. And because you don't punish based on kavachimer, we don't have any clear pasuk that says that we have a pasuk that the granddaughter of the woman that you raped is forbidden to you, but we have no pasuk that the daughter of the woman that you raped is forbidden to you. And that is what we learn. We learn out from Xer Shava. What's Xer Shava? It says in the pasuk, it says the erva, a woman and a daughter you shouldn't reveal. And then it says, and it says in the pasuk there, don't reveal their erva, sha'ar heina, their relations of yours, zimahi. So it says the word heina. And then we find another pasuk, it says the erva of your granddaughter you shouldn't reveal, ki evoscha heina. They are an erva. So we compare the two. So we compare that your wife and the woman that you raped, that they have the same din, which is that the daughters also. As we learn out, zima. In both cases, it says that it's a zimahi, and because it says it's a zimahi, zima means that it's pure erva, and therefore you get punished. So it's not open to the Torah. We have to learn it out. Hein gufi Torah. Then we say that these are the gufi of the Torah. And the Mishnah says that regarding the last few things, where it says that avodas Torah tmeis aroyos, they do have what to rely on because we have Xer Shava, whatever it was, and these are the gufi Torah. So Gemara wonders, hein gufi Torah, hani the rest are not. Everything, even those are not clear in the Torah, even those are mountains in here, even those that you don't have a pasuk in the Torah, a passage in the Torah that alludes to it, they're all from the Torah, regardless. Now we start the second parak of Chagigah. Okay, the second parak of Chagigah is regarding, we just finished talking about Arayas, so we continue talking about Arayas, and as follows. Ein Darshim Ba'Arayas, you don't discuss the subject of Arayas and discuss all the laws of Arayas b'shloisha. The way we understand the Mishnah right now is amongst three people, it means a teacher and two students. You're not supposed to teach two students the Arayas, let alone with more. We'll soon see the Gemara why not and what exactly it means. Now when it comes to Maisa Bereshis, what exactly is Maisa Bereshis here? We have different interpretations. We're on Daf Yud Aleph on the base of the Mishnah. What exactly does it mean? Maisa Bereshis. The Rambam writes in Pirush Mishnayos, Maisa Bereshis means science, the science of nature. And you shouldn't discuss the science of nature Mishnayim two people. That means a teacher and a student, you should only do it yourself. That's what it sounds like. And or others say Maisa Bereshis is to do with the beginning of creation, or ruchas and things we'll soon see. The Loibe Mekava B'Yachid. Yecheskel discusses Maisa Mekava, what he saw the chariots in heaven, the esoteric concepts over there. You shouldn't learn it on your own, even on your own. That's what it sounds like. But then the Mishnah says, but if you can understand on yourself, then you could. What do you mean learn on your own? If it says you should learn on your own, means you're capable, but don't do it. So what do you mean? But if you are capable, you can do it. So the whole Mishnah is difficult to understand. The Gemara will discuss. If anybody looks too hard, mistakel is more than just a glance. Mistakel is you spend a lot of time, you labor on it. Either rasu or rogu. It's suitable that you should never have been created in the world in the first place. Rashi says it's rasu, and he says the word rasu can mean it's not suitable. It's not suitable for you at all. But better that you didn't come into this world. We'll soon see what we're talking about. And or Rashi has another pshat. Ro, it means Rashi means he should have rachmanis. That the Torah has rachmanis in him, but he should really not be in this world anymore. What are they? Mala Maila, what's above us, all these ruchnisika levels. Mala Mata, what's below us. Mala Mata means either below this ragle hachayis, below these high levels, or below the world. Malafani Mala Acher. So Rashi learns over here. Lafani means outside of the universe on the east, or outside the universe on the left, or others say Malach means what's going to happen in the future. Malafani means what was here before the world was created. You shouldn't delve into these subjects. And then he said, anybody who does not have Rahmanas on the covet of his maker, creator Hashem knows, he does Averis discreetly, thinking that nobody knows, but as if saying Hashem doesn't know what's going on. Again, it's better if he wouldn't have come to this world. The Rambam in Pirush Mishnayos says a fascinating thing. He says is a continuation of the Mishnah. And he says, if anybody uses their mind, he says the greatest covet of Hashem is a person's brain. What makes us superior to any other creation that Hashem made in this world is a brain. So this is a gift that Hashem gave every person, a brain. He says that's called kavod koine. The kavod of Hashem is in our heads. And if you use it for the wrong things, if you use it for things that we just told not to use it for, is ro shalei bola olam. So he said that every person has to constantly realize that the brain that they have in the head is a gift from Hashem. And this is what makes us so special. And therefore we should use it in the right way. Says the Gemara. First you started saying, you should learn on your own, which sounds like you're capable, but don't. And then you say, only if he's smart. Of course, we just said that even if he's smart, you shouldn't. So Gemara says, you read the Mishnah all wrong. But this is how you read the Mishnah. Ain doshim ba'arayis, you don't discuss the laws of arayis. Lish loisha, 2-3 people. Not within 3 people, including the teacher. No, you're a teacher and you have a minimum of 3 students, no more. 2 is the maximum. You should learn the laws of arayis. We'll soon see why. Nor do you learn ma'aseh bereshis to 2 people, only to 1 person, which is either science according to the Rambam, or we say, ruchazika things. The loibe merkava liyachid and ma'aseh merkava, which is even more esoteric, you shouldn't teach it to anybody else, only to yourself. Unless that student was very smart, we'll see the Gemara later. Then you can teach that person. So Gemara will explain each one. So, and by the way, the Arizal says that even though it seems to me you shouldn't be learning Kabbalah and Abshim and Yochai when you wrote the Zohar, it was all done discreetly and passed down from generation to generation, very discreetly, even only a Chacham made in the Daitay, and it was only the teacher of the Ramban, was Rabbi Chagigah, who revealed the Zohar. They didn't even have the Zohar. And his wife claimed that he wrote it. It wasn't written of Shem Yochai, and her husband wrote it and just attributed Shem Yochai, so people should look at it. The Arizal says clearly that we accept that it's Shem Yochai who wrote it. Big debate whether the Rambam himself ever learned Kabbalah or not. We have no idea. Some people prove that he did because some of the laws that he brings in the Rambam, there's no other source for it other than the Zohar. Others want to say that no, there were other midrashim that got lost over time or other svarim. It might have come from there. But the Arizal says that today is a mitzvah to reveal this to this teaching. And the best proof is that Yecheskel himself wrote Ma'aseh Merkava. If you're not learning Ma'aseh Merkava, what do you put in Tanakh from Yecheskel? The fact that he wrote it means that there's a time that it will be understood. Why else would he have written it? And the Arizal says that today, because of the situation we're in today, in such darkness in the world, we need extra light. And that's why Chassidus came along a few hundred years later when the work was even darker. And that's why every generation more and more Chassidus is revealed, more and more understanding of all of these esoteric concepts, because as the world gets darker, we need more and more light. And also because this is the Torah of Mashiach, which we'll all be learning very soon. Says the Mishnah Gemara further, ain't darshan ba'arayis b'shloisha. You don't darshan ba'arayis 2-3 people. My time, why not? If you can tell me, it says in the pasuk, ish. It says in the pasuk when it talks about arayis, it says ish twice, a person, a kol she'er b'sarah, to all the relatives. So because it says ish, so you're going to say ish sounds like today 2 people, she'er b'sarah, which means a relative is a 3rd person. Another person, and then the pasuk said, "What should you do? Like sikrivu legalis ever. Don't reveal to them the erva." So therefore, the pasuk says clearly to 3 people, don't reveal the laws of arayis. That's how you learn. Tell me, it says in another pasuk, which says no, every time it says ish, it means a person. It says ish. It says tell the Jews any person ki kalul elakav v'chas v'shalom, they curse out Hashem, terrible sin. So what does it mean there? Now there's a few ways to learn the Gemara. One of the Gemara is, does that mean that over there also you shouldn't reveal the laws of to 2 people? You should only learn because it says ish. Others say it can't be, that's not Pshat Gemara. Others say Pshat Gemara is, so if you're saying ish means a person, does it mean the only time there's a sin of cursing is if 2 people do it together? Is that when it's a sin, if 2 people do it together? Then the Gemara continues, ish. Another pasuk it says if they give the child off to this idol called the melech. Again, you shouldn't teach the laws unless you have 2 people there. If they have 2 people there, only to 1, or only time you're liable is if you have 2 people there. Hachinami, eluhanu miboile. Each one of these ish we need for something else, and what do you call it? The Turi Evan learns the pshat is, by the way, the Gemara is saying ish Turi Evan the Shagizaya. Ish, a person. Since over there definitely doesn't mean that. Why should only 2 people be liable if they curse Hashem? Even 1 person is liable. So obviously it doesn't mean you don't learn from there. two different people. Going back to our arroyos, ish does not mean two different people. So how do you know you're not allowed to teach three people? We need each one. Each time it says ish, there's a reason for it. We're including somebody else, not the same person. And who is that? To include goyim, goyim are also prohibited from cursing Hashem. That says ishish by moilech. That's what it says ishish by mekal. So hainami mebayla. So when it comes to arayos, you know what he says ishish to tell you that goyim also have to have the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. One of them is immorality. The Rabbah says anoch include goyim. So they're also obligated to follow the laws of arayos like a yid. Element it says ushmartem es mishmarti. Maybe we learn from the following pasuk. It says in the pasuk, you should guard my mishmartem. You should guard es mishmarti, what I ask you to guard, and then it says ushmartem, you plural is trei two mishmarti. You should, what needs to be protected is chad one, and then the pasuk says levilti asois. You shouldn't do any of this mechukas, as if you shouldn't reveal it. It's talking about arayos. Don't teach it to 3 people. El me'atev, so it says in pasuk, ushmartem es Shabbos. You should protect the Shabbos. It says in plural, two. Does that mean that you shouldn't learn the laws of Shabbos to 2 people? Or the way the other people learn that only 2 people are chayiv Shabbos. Only 2 people do melacha Shabbos together, chayiv. Or it says another pasuk, ushmartem es hamatzes. You should protect the matzahs. Does that mean that only 2 people should protect matzahs, or you shouldn't learn the law to 2 people? Or ushmartem es shmeres hakodesh. Or it says you should watch all those things that belong to hegdish. Again, I mean only 2 people can watch, or you shouldn't teach 2 people. Hello, Rashi. Forget all this. My ain't doishim ba'arayos. You know why you shouldn't teach 3 students? Ein dorshan besisre arayos. You do not darshan the secrets of arayos to 3 people or more. Rashi says besisre arayos means the secret laws of arayos, like we looked at the top of the page, that the daughter of the victim that you prayed on is forbidden to you, or the mother of your mother-in-law, or the mother of your father-in-law. It's not clearly in the Torah. These are the secrets of arayos. Don't teach it to 3 students. That's what Rashi says. The Mashah says very interesting. The secret of arayos is, why is it that we find in the Torah certain people committed the sins of arayos? Yaakov married 2 sisters. Cain and Hevel married their sister. Or going to marry. Or Shais married a sister. How were they allowed to do that? Or Cain married a sister. How were they allowed to do that? Mar Sanhedrin says. That's a secret of arayos. My time, so why not? What's wrong with teaching it to 3 students plus? Svaru, it's pure logic. Today, 2 students, 2 students sitting with the teacher. So what happens is this: what usually happens if a kid has too many questions, the other kids tune out. So if it's only 2 students in the class, one kid asks a question, the other kid has nothing else to do, so he listens in and he hears everything that's happening, so that the student who's probing and trying to understand it better, the other student also naturally will understand it better as well. But if you have 3 students in the class and one student is engaged with the teacher, what happens to the other 2? They start talking to each other, playing with each other. They miss out. They don't really hear what the teacher is saying, and they'll come to the wrong conclusions. They'll say, oh, we were in class, but they didn't hear the details, the specifics that came out, were teased out of the teacher by this other student asking questions. So it says as follows. 2 kids, come out by saying in front of the teacher, one of them is sitting there and having a discussion with his teacher, and the other student has nothing better to do, so he tilts his ear listening to the learning. Oh, but Klotz, you have 3 students. This is what happens. One of them will sit there and have a discussion with his teacher. The other 2, will have a shaklatai between themselves. They'll miss out. The one where the teacher said, and they'll start saying, oh, well, wait, this is permitted, because they didn't hear the teacher going further and saying this is also prohibited. So now for the more a simple question, if that's the logic, and how can you ever have a class of 3 people or more? You'll always have, why only arayos? Every single law in Shulchan Aruch you ever learn, you should never teach Shulchan Aruch more than 2 students. You're learning the laws of Shabbos, you're learning these laws or that laws, kashas, whatever it may be. The kid who's asking the questions you're engaged with, and the rest are doing their own thing, and will come to the wrong conclusions. Why are we only worried about arayos? So arayos is different. You know why arayos is different? We learned gezel va'aroyes. We learned when it comes to stealing, when it comes to aroyes, nafshe machmadosun u'misavelo. These are the two strongest desires that a person has. In fact, that's why we read aroyes Yom Kippur by Mincha, because this is the strongest yetzer hara that a person has is for aroyes, and because the strongest yetzer hara is, you tend naturally to somehow or another justify everything you do and find a terror. So if you don't hear your teacher properly, you rather conclude this is permitted. All other things you're gonna find out further whether you're permitted or not permitted. Here, as soon as you find even the smallest inkling that this is permitted, you're gonna go ahead and follow that channel. So why only Aroyis make the same law when it comes to stealing? So no, Aroyis is even worse than Gezel. Aroyis is being befun of ben shaloi befun of nafajis. When it comes to Aroyis, it doesn't matter whether the temptations in front of your eyes or not. You have images and you can speculate whatever it is and create a desire by you, and you'll say, oh, this is permitted. But gezel, when it comes to stealing, the stealing is only there's a temptation when it's right in front of you. The fun of nafesh, you say, if something is in front of you and you're tempted to steal, okay, it's a strong yetzer hara. If it's not in front of you, then like nafesh, you don't have any yetzer hara for stealing. That's why we're so cautious when it comes to aroyis. The next thing is you said we shouldn't teach ma'aser bereishis to two people. How do you know that? That's what we learned. When you, it says a singular, when you will ask about the good old days, that was before you, and so on and so forth. So it's Yachid Shoyl Ein Shnayim Shoylim, and there it talks about from creation. So it's only one person can ask, but not two people. Yachol Yishol Adam Kodim Shiroilim. So okay, one person would give license to discuss the being of a creation. Maybe you can talk about what happened before creation. How far back can you go? The day that Hashem created on this world. Adam was created on the sixth day. So maybe you can only go as far back as the sixth day of creation, not go back to the beginning of creation to work all that out. To the days that were before you. Before you means before Adam was created, which means you can go back to the beginning of the creation of this world, which is also the beginning of this world, is also the beginning of time. So the Yachol Yishul Adam Mala 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 Mata. I would have thought a person can ask what's above this world, all the spiritual spheres, Mala Mata, what's below this world, what's below the Ragli Chayis, Mala Fonim, Mala Acher, what happened in the past, what happens in the future. Tamalemed says the pasuk L'Miktzei Hashemayim. How far back can you go? When Adam was created, but from one end of the world to the other end of the world. You can only ask what's inside the universe, but not what is before and what is after and outside of the universe. Is like Rashi says in the Mishnah, means outside of this universe, to the right or to the left. And since space and time were created in the same together, because actually the theory is the same. In order to have time, you need to have the number two, because you have a past and a present, or a present and the future. Otherwise, there's no such thing as time. You need a number two. In order to have space, you need a number of two, because if space is only number one, then everything is one. That's the Eibishter. Eibishter is one. It's everything. Space means you have to have a contrast. There's a world, and the world is, but there's a place where there is no world. So the number two is actually the first creation, and that creation allowed for time and allowed for space. And there's actually a big hakira whether time began the first second the world was created or the second. Because the first second was created, there was the world and there was no world. But before the world was created, before there was a number two, there was no such thing as time. So from 0 to 1, is that called time, or you need from 1 to 2 to be considered time? Anyway, it's a discussion for another time. Hashda, said the Gemara, question. Hashda, you're learning from one end of the world to the other end of the world. Why is the pasuk say from the day that the world's created? You just say Miktzeh Shemaim. You can't ask anything that's outside of the world. Automatically, you cannot ask for anything that happened before the world was created, because I just told you, time and space are one and the same. If you can't ask about space outside of these contours or these in the other's frame, then you can't ask outside the time as well. It's the same thing. Says the Gemara, when you Adam, what was the size of Adam for something, a separate issue altogether, side issue. Adam, when he was created, he reached the skies. The day you created Adam. But after he sinned, Hashem placed his hand on him, and he shrunk. Shneimar, it says, Achar v'kedem tzartani. You created me twice. You created me in the beginning. I was tall to the heavens, and then you created me a second time. I was only 100 amas tall, or let's say 1,000. But Toshas olai kapechi. Place your hand on me. Omar Vidam Rav, Adam Marishan, you know how tall Adam Marishan was? Misaifa Eilam at Saifa, from one end of the world to the other one. In that very pasuk it says, Min Hayim Hashabara Likim Adam ala Oretz, from the day that Adam was created, and the next word is Mikteh Shemaim. So you thought Mikteh Shemaim goes to the next word, Va'at Kteh Shemaim. No, let's take Mikteh Shemaim and bring it forward. Ula Mikteh Shemaim, from the Adam was created ala Oretz to Mikteh Shemaim, to the sky. And as soon as he committed a sin, Hashem put a place his hand on him, and he shrunk. And it says, you place your hand on me. It says, if so, you have an argument or a contradiction. One pasuk says he reached the heavens, and one pasuk says he reached one end of the word to the other end of the word. It says, they're both exactly the same. Shir, the distance from this world to the first heaven, we'll see later, is the time it takes to walk 500 years, and the distance one of the world to the other world is exactly the same thing. The time it takes to walk 500 years. Now, in the Chassidus Dvarim, it says that what's the argument whether he reached this? If exactly the same thing, what's the argument? One of them says it's from the earth to the heaven, and one of them says from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth. Machlekes, we have a machlekes in the Gemara whether Adam was a tzaddik or Adam was a rasha. Different Gemaras say different things. So if Adam was a tzaddik, then even though his feet were on the ground, his head was in heavens, was in Gan Eden. His head was always in Shemayim. So therefore he was a tzaddik. And the other one says that Adam was always a rasha, and therefore he never was in spiritual world. His height was from one end of the Gashmi, he had the whole Gashmi, from one end of the world to the other end of the physical world. His head wasn't interested in Ruchnis. His head was only interested in Gashmis. So that's the argument. Who was Adam? Okay, we'll continue tomorrow in Mitzvah.
Thank you.